So if you say you're going to give a particular athlete 50 trials at whatever they're practicing. This is just a practice environment. And for those 50 trials, you're going to give them feedback on every single one. They'll do really well. But take them away from that learning environment, put them in a game situation, or leave them in an environment in which they try to perform that task by themselves, they're terrible. So it's kind of similar to that whole practice variability phenomenon in which they do real well in a practice environment, but they don't do well by themselves or in a test environment. So the current view is less than 100% frequency is better. So just kind of give them a little time to think about what they did, give them a little time to think about and figure out by themselves, problem solve. Remember, it all gets back to cognitive effort. Give them a little time to work themselves mentally and try to figure out what you said and relate it to what kind of movement solutions that they can create. Okay? And I touched a little bit on this, increase in problem-solving activity. This is so important when people are learning new movement actions, is this problem-solving ability. Just how people get stronger and faster, you want them to create a lot of power, a lot of force in however they're working out. So if they're learning activities, you want to do the same thing cognitively. You want to challenge them cognitively. You don't want to create this environment where the coach or the instructor is figuring out all the problems for the particular athlete. So what you get with this 100% frequency is that all of a sudden the player is not solving problems anymore. They're not solving movement problems. It's you as the coach or the instructor that's actually solving the problems for them. And this guidance hypothesis, the beneficial performance effects of receiving augmented feedback on every practice trial becomes negative learning because you are solving the problems for them. Why? You're creating this dependency or this crutch. In effect, you're crippling them. And I think Brent on Friday mentioned something about what you want to do when you're training or developing a pitcher is you want to make him independent. You're going to put him on that field. He's going to be on a mound in front of 50,000 people in these situations. He can't sit there and say, oh, coach, what am I doing? He has to figure out problems by himself. And how does he learn that? Or how does he or she learn that? They learn how to problem solve in their practice. We have all these things of what we shouldn't do or what we should do. So what are some ways that we can kind of organize our feedback or some techniques? One is called the fading technique. You systematically reduce the amount of feedback on a trial-by-trial basis. So you can start out from every trial to 2 per 8 trials. And it's called the fading technique. So maybe in the beginning, you give them a lot of feedback. You say every other trial, you give them feedback. And then in the middle section of the practice environment, now you're giving them feedback maybe every 5 attempts. And then finally at the end, it could be every 20 attempts. So it's like that weaning off effect. And you can also do a performance bandwidth technique. And what this really is you only give them feedback if their error is really big. So you could say you're using a target, for example, for pitching. And they have this specific target that they're supposed to throw to. And you have some means of measuring inches away from the target. So you could say, if you're using this bandwidth technique, you could say, okay, I'm only going to give them feedback if he's 5 inches away from the target. But if he's 5 inches or less, I'm not going to say anything. So that's another way, and that reduces the amount of frequency also. This one is kind of what I'm heavily involved with in my current research. It's called learner-requested feedback technique. And in my opinion, this is really, really good if you want to make your athlete independent from yourself. And it's called learner-requested feedback. So they dictate when they allow you. So you're actually giving them a little control of this training environment. They dictate, or the performer dictates when they get their feedback. And oddly enough, studies have shown that this learner-requested feedback technique, how they choose or how an athlete or performer chooses is very similar to a fading technique. And what that says is that the player does know a little something about what they need and what they don't need because they can design their own schedule being unconscious of it, and that schedule of feedback is actually effective. This technique